Hook 015s. Somewhere out there right now, a person is sitting in a $4,000 a month apartment staring at a paycheck most people would cry over and feeling completely, utterly broke. Not metaphorically broke, behaviorally broke, emotionally broke. The kind of broke that doesn't show up in your bank account but lives somewhere behind your eyes. Tension, 15 to 60s. Here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Earning more money sometimes makes people feel worse. Not better. Worse. And I don't mean the obvious stuff. I don't mean lifestyle inflation or overspending. I mean something deeper. Something almost invisible. A psychological mechanism that kicks in the moment your income crosses a certain threshold and quietly begins dismantling the version of yourself that used to feel okay. There's a Reddit post circulating right now that stopped a lot of people cold. Someone writes, $250K a year and broke. 4 years ago, I made $120K a year and was happier. The comments exploded, not with judgment, with recognition. Thousands of people saying, that's me. That is exactly me. So what is actually happening here? Body. Let's start with something called the hedonic treadmill. The hedonic treadmill is the psychological phenomenon where human beings return to a baseline level of happiness regardless of what happens to them. Win the lottery. Lose your legs. Within roughly 2 years, most people's reported happiness levels return to roughly where they were before. We adapt. That's what we do. It's a survival mechanism. But here's the part the self-help industry conveniently skips. The treadmill doesn't just flatten the good stuff, it accelerates your requirements. Every time your income jumps, your brain recalibrates what normal looks like. The apartment that felt luxurious at $80K feels cramped at $200K. The vacations that felt indulgent start to feel like the minimum acceptable standard. The restaurants, the clothes, the neighborhood, all of it quietly ratchets up. And not because you're reckless, because your nervous system has updated its definition of baseline. So you're not spending more because you're stupid. You're spending more because your brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do. But here's where it gets darker. At lower incomes, financial stress is painful, but it's legible. You know why you're stressed. You can name it. I can't cover rent. My car needs fixing. I can't afford to go out this weekend. The problem has a face. At higher incomes, financial anxiety becomes something else entirely. It becomes shapeless. You make $250K and you're still anxious about money, but you can't explain why without sounding insane. So you don't talk about it. You perform the image of someone who has it together, and that performance costs you something every single day. There's a term in psychology called cognitive dissonance, the discomfort of holding two contradictory beliefs at once. I earn a lot of money and I feel financially insecure are two beliefs your brain cannot comfortably hold simultaneously. And the way most high earners resolve that dissonance is not by addressing the anxiety. It's by spending more, to feel like the version of themselves their income implies they should be. And this is where the trap fully closes. Now let's talk about something most financial conversations completely ignore. Identity cost. When you were making $60K or $80K or even $120K, you had a clear sense of where you stood. Your peer group was legible. Your aspirations were specific. You knew what you were working toward. But at $200K, $250K, $300K, you enter a strange liminal zone. You're too wealthy to relate to most people's financial stress. But you're nowhere near wealthy enough to feel secure in the circles your income suggests you belong to. You can see the wealthy class from where you're standing, but you can't touch it. And that gap, that specific gap, is psychologically brutal in a way that poverty simply isn't. Poverty is painful, but it's shared. Community forms around it. Humor forms around it. Solidarity forms around it. Being upper middle income and still feeling financially anxious? That's a profoundly lonely place. Because you're not allowed to complain. You've lost the social permission to name your pain. Here's what nobody tells you about high-income anxiety. The higher your income climbs, the more your financial identity becomes load-bearing for your entire sense of self. At 50K, your job is what you do. At 250K, your income is who you are. And when that identity feels precarious, when a single layoff could unwind everything, the psychological stakes become enormous. We're watching this play out in real time right now. Meta employees, Google employees, tech workers across the industry posting about crying in the shower. Terrified. Not because they're poor, because they built their entire identity on an income level that turned out to be temporary. And the structural anxiety of knowing that, even while the paychecks are still coming, is its own specific kind of suffering. There's actually a study from Princeton, later reanalyzed by Matthew Killingsworth, about income and emotional well-being. The original finding was that happiness plateaued around $75,000. But the updated research found something more nuanced. Happiness does continue to rise with income for most people, but for a specific subset, roughly the unhappiest 20%, more money actually made things worse. Why? Because money amplifies what's already there. If your unhappiness is rooted in comparison, in identity, in performance anxiety, more money doesn't solve that. It intensifies it. It gives you more to lose, more to compare, more surface area for anxiety to grip. And here's the question I want you to sit with for a moment. When did you last feel genuinely okay about money? Not rich, not secure in some abstract future sense, but just, okay, present, enough. For most people, that feeling doesn't scale with income. It scales with something else entirely. Climax. Here is the central thing. The thing this whole conversation has been circling. We are running a race where the finish line moves, not metaphorically, literally. The moment you cross a financial threshold, the culture, your peer group, your own nervous system, quietly relocates the finish line to just past where you are now. And the cruelest part? The race feels more urgent the closer you get, because now you have more to protect, more to maintain, more image to uphold, more identity wrapped up in the number. The person making 120K who felt happier wasn't richer in money. They were richer in something else. Clarity, enoughness, the feeling that they were still becoming something rather than desperately maintaining something. There's a Japanese concept called ma. It means the space between things, the pause, the gap, the rest. When your entire psychological architecture is built around earning and achieving and maintaining, you lose ma. You lose the space to just exist without a number attached to your worth. And without that space, no salary is ever going to feel like enough. Ending. So what do you do with this? I'm not going to tell you to earn less. I'm not going to hand you a budgeting template or a 5-step plan. That's not what this is. But I will tell you this. The anxiety you feel about money at 250K is not a wealth problem. It is an identity problem. And identity problems don't get solved by adding zeros. The people who seem genuinely okay with money, not just performing okayness, but actually living it, they've done something the high achiever psychology resists almost violently. They've decided what enough looks like, not what society says enough looks like, not what their peer group implies enough is, what they specifically actually need to feel like a full human being who is not defined by a number. That decision is harder than any salary negotiation you will ever have, and it is the only financial move that actually changes anything. If this felt like looking in a mirror, you're not alone, and you're not broken. You're just running a race that was designed to have no finish line. Maybe it's time to stop running.